What if I told you the greatest queen in English history, the woman who defeated armadas, silenced assassins, and built an empire, was slowly being eaten alive by her own crown? Elizabeth, I was celebrated as divine, immortal, untouchable. But behind the pearls and portraits was a body crumbling under poison, disease, and unbearable loneliness. She wasn't just fighting enemies abroad. She was fighting her own reflection. Tonight, we strip away the mask of the Virgin Queen and uncover the heartbreaking truth she fought to keep hidden until her final breath. Imagine stepping into a hall of stained glass and banners, bowing before the Virgin Queen herself. She stands radiant, unflinching, the embodiment of power. But then she speaks, and the invisible blow lands. Your eyes sting, your stomach twists. You wonder if something has died in the room. Elizabeth's halitosis was infamous, but the stench was only the herald of a deeper ruin. Behind the painted lips lay teeth blackened, loosened, clinging to inflamed gums like lifeless pegs. Visitors wrote of it. Courtiers whispered. Attendants begged her to accept treatment. She refused. Pain meant weakness, and weakness could unmake a queen. The decay began early, in her 20s, a perfect storm of stress, genetics, and one deadly luxury, sugar. Imported from her colonies, sugar was status, and Elizabeth adored it. But instead of cleansing her teeth, she soothed them with honey. Honey, fashionable, comforting, and a disaster for enamel. By her 40s, many teeth had surrendered. What remained were blackened stumps. Chewing was agony. Soft bread twisted her face with grimaces. Meat was allowed only if boiled into grey surrender. The royal kitchens learned to simmer every dish until texture vanished. Advisors tiptoed around the problem. One physician dared suggest extraction. She banished him. Another tried persuasion, offering to prove it was painless. Elizabeth's reply was legendary. Then remove yours. And he did, publicly screaming, bleeding, collapsing before her eyes. She watched in silence, her jaw clenched like iron. The terror wasn't pain. It was pride. To show decline was to feed the wolves circling her throne. So she engineered rituals. Rose petals stuffed between teeth to sweeten the rot. Cloves and cardamom chewed to drown the sour. Silver-plated cutlery polished to reflect a regal mouth that no longer existed. But silver tarnishes against truth. Diplomats coughed through audiences. A Spanish envoy admitted, captivating, majestic, yet her mouth is a small cemetery. As her teeth failed, so did her voice. The queen whose words could rally a nation began to slur. Dramatists adjusted her lines. At banquets, a goblet raised and a fan lifted became choreography to hide the fact that their queen could barely eat. If her teeth were a battlefield, her skin became a fortress against the very thing we call life, water. To Elizabeth it was poison. In Tudor England, where rivers doubled as sewers, fear of water wasn't entirely madness. But for her, it hardened into doctrine. She believed water seeped through pores and seeded disease. Bathing in her mind wasn't cleansing, it was a death trap. Physicians of the age echoed her fears, warning that moisture could unbalance the body. And so the queen chose the counter-ritual, oceans of perfume. Each morning began with masking, never washing. Cloths steeped in vinegar, rose water, or wine dabbed her face and arms. Not to scrub away dirt, but to veil it. Gowns soaked in sandalwood, musk, and myrrh, layered scent over sweat. Beneath 6 garments, smock stays, petticoats, farthingales, the body sweltered, trapped in its own brine. The result? An aroma so famous it followed her like a crown of its own. One French envoy wrote that coming near Elizabeth was like tasting sweetness edged with decay, roses wilting in slow motion. She prized cleanliness, but only on her terms. Courtiers had to sparkle. A whiff of sweat could earn exile. Yet the queen's own nightgowns, maids whispered, could stand upright from oils and salt. Yes, she owned a bath. Porcelain, cherub-trimmed, paraded before guests as a symbol of refinement. But it was almost never used. When she did, it wasn't cleansing. It was theater. Petals floated on the surface, violets, marigolds, roses. A priest blessed the warm water. Elizabeth sank slowly, attendants holding their breath. No scrubbing, no rinsing, only soaking. As the water clouded, servants poured perfume instead of changing it. Musk, civet, patchouli until the tub became soup, a bouquet of decay. One maid called the final scent a funeral steeped in milk, and the body revolted. Rashes blossomed beneath corsets. Raw skin cracked at seams. Perfume caked into scales that flaked from her arms. Doctors begged to let them wash her, just behind the ears at least. She shrieked witchcraft and banished them. To Elizabeth, water was danger. Oils were power. Sweat was purification. And her scent, she declared, was divine. Others gagged. Foreign courts snickered. England's rose was rotting on the stem. When water fled, paint rose. To bury sores on unwashed skin, Elizabeth armored herself in white, Venetian ceruse, a lead-based powder layered until her flesh became porcelain. Perfume hid the smell. Powder hid the lesions. Nothing hid the truth. This wasn't vanity. It was policy. A mask of power. After surviving smallpox in 1562, scars haunted her face. At 29, with the kingdom worshipping her as a near-divine virgin queen, she chose the mask. Candlelight adored it. Poets called her silver-skinned, but lead adores bone and brain. It seeped into her blood, salted her nerves, and poisoned her from within. Her skin dried, cracked, and split. She painted more. Beneath the layers, sores blossomed. Maids were forbidden to remove the mask, only refresh it. The white crust thickened year by year. By midlife, every expression cost blood. Portraits froze her still, because movement itself hurt, and the mask didn't end with white. Vermilion brightened her lips, cinnabar flamed her cheeks, lamp-black shadowed her eyes, belladonna widened her pupils. Each stroke was an offering to the throne, and each one a toxin. Her brows thinned, lashes vanished, hair fell in clumps. She penciled new arches, powdered her forehead, and leaned on wigs to replace what her poisons destroyed. Physicians begged her to stop. Her reply ended debate. My face is my throne, and the throne demanded tribute. Tremors came, sleepless nights, sudden rages, suspicion of everyone around her. Bones ached, joints stiffened, fingers curled. Her back bowed. Still, she rose before dawn to be remade. Oils, powder, blush, paint, more powder, until she shimmered like an idol by candlelight. One maid who peeled back a hardened sheet of paint discovered a living wound beneath and vomited. Elizabeth struck her across the face in public. The goddess punished the witness. Foreign diplomats joked in letters. An angel rancid. Perfume could not duel putrefaction. The public never saw it. Portraits were edited. Mirrors were banished from her chambers. Even she could not confront herself. The mask had become her reality. It preserved her image while it devoured her alive. Not all crowns are gold. Elizabeth's most famous was spun from horsehair, glue, and powder, an illusion of vitality as her own copper-red mane thinned and fell away. In her late 30s, the daily poisons of lead, mercury, and starch strangled her follicles. Hair was youth, legitimacy, and power. To lose it risked whispers of weakness. Her answer, wigs. Dozens of them, braided, curled, and stacked into towers that scraped chapel arches. They were rarely cleaned. Water was the enemy, so attendants dabbed them with vinegar and prayers. Most were horse or goat, some human, purchased, begged, or stolen. Adhesives of starch, egg, and fat fixed them to wire frames, then powdered white to match her painted skin. And where there is warmth and starch, life arrives. Lice and fleas nested constantly. Servants whispered of worse, maggots wriggling at the scalp line. One morning a maid brushed a crescent of movement from beneath the wig, dusted it with lavender, and restored the crown in silence. Truth was locked behind oaths. Each day began as ritual. 2 attendants, 3 guards, a priest. Silence, blessing, the wig fitted like armor. A fallen strand was treated as relic, buried with ceremony. If a wig slipped during council, business paused until it was restored. One favorite, an enormous red corkscrew creation studded with pearls, weighed nearly 20 pounds. A steel brace supported her neck so she could bear it. Beneath, her scalp festered, pins driven deep to steady the mass gouged into sores. Fungal blooms spread, infection chewed toward bone. Physicians begged her to let her skin breathe. She snapped, "My scalp serves not your peasant hypothesis. It upholds the crown." At night, wigs were locked in a guarded chamber, dried hastily over coals. Never fully, so mold festered in their linings. One noblewoman dared compare the queen's hair to a damp tomb. She was exiled. The wigs weren't just grotesque. They were lethal. Lead powder seeped into her scalp and blood, feeding the tremors and fainting fits that haunted her last years. Eventually, her scalp deteriorated so badly she wore an iron mesh beneath, which gouged as it guarded. Still, she demanded the illusion. Even at death's door, Elizabeth asked for her wig. Lavender battled the stench as she gasped her last breaths. When Elizabeth finally collapsed in March of 1603, the illusion unraveled with terrifying speed. Decades of poisoning herself with lead powders, mercury oils, and perfumes had turned her body into a chemical disaster. Her skin swelled, darkened, and oozed fluids. The chambers filled with a stench so overwhelming that bowls of roses, incense, and vinegar could not disguise it. Guards had to rotate shifts because the odor seeped from her coffin. The embalmers faced a nightmare. When they lifted her mask of paint and wig, they recoiled. Abscesses cratered her cheeks, lips fused with lesions, eyelids sunken and raw. Flesh under the chin sloughed away. Her hairline was a map of sores. To preserve the illusion, they didn't cleanse her. They built another mask. Wax smoothed over her ravaged face. Lace collars covered her neck. Her lips were sewn shut, her eyes painted with false life. Crowds gathered and wept at her funeral, never knowing the truth. They smelled not flowers but the corpse itself, rotting through its wrappings. Later examinations revealed the toll: bones porous from lead, liver blackened, lungs coated with residue from years of powders and smoke. She had been a corpse in motion long before her heart stopped, and yet the mask triumphed. Portraits painted her radiant. Chroniclers wrote of the Virgin Queen, untouched by time. Her death became another performance, the final act of an image crafted with blood and poison. The lesson was darker than legend. Terrified of weakness, Elizabeth chose perfume over water, powder over health, appearance over truth. She became a living symbol, until the symbol consumed her. Even in her tomb, whispers endured. Some swore a faint, sickly sweet scent lingered near her resting place. The ghost of her perfumes mingled with decay. History remembers her victories. The Armada defeated, the stage of Shakespeare, the dawn of England's power. But behind the portraits lies the reality. A queen who rotted on her throne, her body sacrificed to the illusion of immortality. She lived as a mask. She died as a mask. And centuries later, the mask is what remains. Elizabeth's story leaves us with a haunting question: how much of history is truth, and how much is theatre? The portraits show a goddess in pearls, the Virgin Queen radiant forever. But the reality was a woman suffocating beneath lead, perfume, wigs, and pride. She defeated armadas, silenced assassins, and forged an empire. Yet in private her body was crumbling. Every smile was agony, every wig a crown of thorns, every breath a warning that power itself can be poison. And still, she never broke character. Through her last breath, Elizabeth refused to be seen as fragile. She chose the mask over the woman, and the world believed her. That's the power of illusion. It can build legends, topple kingdoms, and outlive flesh. It's why Shakespeare praised her, why artists immortalized her, and why we still whisper her name centuries later. But behind every myth, there is always a hidden body. And sometimes, that body tells a truer story than the crown. If this glimpse into the darker side of royalty gripped you, wait until you hear what happened to Next Topic Tease. A dynasty destroyed not by swords or assassins, but by secrets etched into their very blood, because history's greatest empires weren't undone by armies alone. Sometimes they rotted from within. So, if you want to keep uncovering the secrets that portraits and monuments tried to bury, don't leave just yet. Click here for the next chapter of history's hidden horrors. And remember, legends are beautiful, but the truth is unforgettable.